From Judges 14, verse 6. And the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, Samson, and he tore apart the lion as he would have torn apart a kid goat. In preparation for this service today, I looked at a website article entitled, Why Troublemaker Kids Make Great Entrepreneurs. You'll see why this is relevant in a moment. The article explained how it is quite common for kids who constantly get into trouble, break rules, rebel against authority, end up becoming quite successful leaders and business owners. There have been numerous studies done on current successful entrepreneurs, which prove that many of them, when they were young, had run-ins with the law, mostly from misdemeanor offenses. They had high disregard for parental orders, they got bad grades in school, they cheated a lot in school or skipped entire days of school altogether, and other such things. But it also becomes clear that troublemakers aren't always destined to become criminals and menaces to society, which is often thought to be the case at that time. Causing trouble is something they eventually grow out of, as they learn to place that same negative energy towards something more positive and useful. But overall, they are simply straightforward and unapologetic in questioning authority and social standards. They are not afraid to take risks, and they are very determined. If you were to choose one biblical character that would fall under the successful troublemaker category, I hope you would choose Samson. Chapter 13 of Judges spends a good deal of time on Samson's birth, where his parents were given very specific rules that he would have to obey. Chapters 14 through 16 then continue his story and legacy. The focus today is on Judges 14, verses 1 to 9, where we see some of Samson's first accomplishments as judge of Israel, and we'll see how this relates to the Lord and our lives. Now reading from the Word. Now Samson went to Timnah and saw a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. So he went up and told his father and mother, saying, I have seen a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore get her for me as a wife. Then his father and mother said to him, Is there no woman among the daughters of your brethren or among my people, that ye must go and get a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? And Samson said to his father, Get her for me, for she pleases me well. But his father and mother did not know that it was of the Lord, that he was seeking an occasion to move against the Philistines, for at that time the Philistines had dominion over Israel. So Samson went down to Timnah with his father and mother, and came to the vineyards of Timnah. Now to his surprise, a young lion came roaring against him. And the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and he tore the lion apart as one would have torn apart a young goat, though he had nothing in his hand. But he did not tell his father or his mother what he had done. Then he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Samson well. After some time he then returned to get her. He turned aside to see the carcass of the lion, and behold, a swarm of bees and honey were in the carcass of the lion. He took some of it with his hands and went along eating. When he came to his father and mother, he gave some to them, and they also ate. But he did not tell them that he had taken the honey out of the carcass of the lion. I chose this reading mostly for the lion scene. It nicely summarizes all that Samson, and the Lord for that matter, would do. Now we know that Samson is a well-accomplished judge. He pulled things off that no ordinary person could ever do. Here's just a quick look at Samson's accomplishments. He defeated a vicious lion with his bare hands and tore it apart as if it were a cub. He caught 300 foxes and tied their tails together, and inserted a torch in between the tails. Then he sent them running wild through the Philistine fields to burn down all their crops. After they killed his wife and father-in-law, he killed 1,000 Philistines using the jawbone of a donkey. At Gaza, they tried to surround him and attack him. So he got up at midnight and just took the gate of the city away. This gate was heavy, as you could imagine, with 2 posts and a giant crossbar made of metal, and he hauled it on foot about 38 miles uphill and just left it there. Now we know Samson's downfall, that with Delilah and a bit of strong drink, he succumbed to her wishes and let her cut his hair. At that point, he was unable to fight back against the Philistines and was captured. But in one final redeeming act, he prayed to the Lord to give back his strength, which he did. So then Samson pushed against the pillars of a Philistine stronghold, knocking it and all the Philistines in it over. He defeated more Philistines then than in his entire lifetime. And he died in that act. So considering all that he did, along with the kind of person he is, and not to mention the fact that the Spirit of the Lord entered him many times, he has definitely earned the title of one of the greatest judges to ever serve Israel. Samson is one of the most unique characters of the Old Testament. His story is most impressive. He is like other Old Testament characters in that he represents the Lord, he prays to him, and he serves his people. But he's also a huge troublemaker. He constantly broke rules. He got into fights. He not only caused trouble, but got into trouble. He's like the kid in school who's always getting detention, or is always in timeout at home, and for doing misdemeanor type things too, like burning down a crop of fields, or field of crops, or removing the city gate. He wasn't necessarily causing a violent uproar towards anyone, except when he was fighting the enemy. He's surely a troublemaker, but a successful troublemaker. Now, he's unlike other Old Testament characters who would often call on the Lord to perform some miracle, like Moses and Elijah would do. He's also not like other prophets who had impressive visions. Every impressive thing that Samson did, he did by himself with his superhuman strength, and we'll add to that absolute determination. We'll get back to that. What's nice about Old Testament characters representing the Lord is that each one represents him in some particular way. Their unique qualities end up highlighting various aspects of the same one God. Samson represents the Lord as to his divine human. Now, divine human is a way of letting us know that God is human, and his human had power all the way down to the ultimate level, which doctrinally is called natural. We can think of this natural level as where the rubber meets the road. It's very down to earth. It's where all the power is. It's where we live and breathe each day here on earth. This level is where the Lord came and interacted with everyone in the fullest degree, so people could hear him and see him, touch him, even smell him and taste him, with both their spiritual and physical senses. He is the divine human. Samson illustrated this aspect by the fact that he was a Nazirite, as was the Lord, and also by virtue of his strength. His power was in his long hair, and hair in the word represents power in the utmost, or in other words, where the rubber meets the road. This is a very important level to have. Even though by itself the natural level is gross and very finite, but you can't do away with it, because without it, the higher spiritual things would have nowhere to rest. It would be like removing the foundation to a house. Even though the house is more important and is where all the life takes place, removing the foundation would cause the house to crumble and eventually fall. Samson is strong, representing the natural level, like a strong foundation for divine things to rest. That connection with him and the Lord is clear. But you might wonder, though, how Samson represents the Lord with his other side. Yes, he was strong and a hero, but he also seemed immoral. He broke rules. He drank and got drunk. He spent time with harlots. He succumbed to Delilah's insistence and gave away his secret to his strength. He was a troublemaker from the very beginning. You can notice that in the reading from Judges chapter 14, that from the moment he was acting as the judge of Israel, this was his time to serve, his first order of business was to find a foreign woman from the Philistines to marry. So from the get-go, he is already violating his rule of not marrying foreign women. He even asked his parents to go get her for him. And they then asked, why not marry one of your own? He just said, go get her for me. It didn't take much convincing for them. They just went and did it. Now it is pointed out in that chapter that this was a move from the Lord, that marrying a Philistine woman would create a chance for him to infiltrate the Philistines and at length defeat them. But the question remains, how does Samson represent the Lord if he was breaking rules? What about his immoral lifestyle? Did the Lord ever break rules? Is there really a comparison here? Now maybe the Lord was a troublemaker kid. Who knows? Would you be surprised? We can speculate about this within reason. No, the Lord didn't break rules. He always operated within his own divine order and never outside of it. However, it may have looked like he defied the rules of nature with his miracles and healings. Or maybe we can see how the Lord was a troublemaker in how he handled the law. He did say that he came not to change the law or break the law, but to fulfill it. Though quite often the fulfillment would appear contrary to the law, like when he said, love your enemies, even though the Old Testament says, destroy them. But perhaps this is where the Lord is a troublemaker. When he defied the tradition of the Pharisees, and the Pharisees were the real rule breakers. The Lord knew what he was doing. He knew what they would do. In a certain sense, the Lord was causing trouble with everything he did, kind of like he's stirring the pot. Everything he did, although perfectly orderly and right, always hit a nerve with the Pharisees, and they reacted as if he was the one who was completely out of line. The Lord's encounters with the Pharisees are very similar with Samson's encounters and bouts with the Philistines. In both cases, they always had the upper hand all the way through, and even when they were captured, they came through in the end. Let's look at the lion scene again. It is recorded here sort of like an isolated event. It's independent of everything else that goes on. It's just this chance encounter with a wild animal, and it doesn't seem to influence the rest of Samson's story one way or the other, although it does serve as a basis for his riddles later on. Samson defeating the lion, though, summarizes all that he would do, and it adds effective foreshadowing of Samson's struggle, success, and defeat against the Philistines. And likewise, since Samson represents the Lord, this same scene foreshadowed the Lord's struggle, success, and defeat against not only the Pharisees, but everything that they and the Philistines and the lion represented. And that is faith separated from charity. This leads us to our final point. Faith separated from charity almost looks harmless when you read it like so. But really, it is no joke. It is a serious threat, just like a vicious lion is a threat, just like the Philistines were a threat. And you need someone strong like Samson or the Lord to go up against fearsome faith separated from charity. Now, charity includes all things of love and affection, all good things. When faith is separated from charity, that is, devoid of love or any aim to goodness, it becomes quite powerful and harmful. It leads to harsh criticisms and judgments on others. Even if there is truth to it, it is still harsh and damaging. Faith with no love can also cause one to abandon the process of regeneration, seeing no need to examine oneself and discover what needs to be worked on. If that is not taking place, if there is no actual repentance, then that leaves the love of self to dominate and control. The love of self is the real danger of faith separated from charity. And it is a very strong enemy to go up against, because we are essentially fighting against our own selves. Now, we are not super strong like Samson. We are also not troublemakers, I think. How then do we infiltrate the Philistines? How do we defeat the lion? How do we push down the pillars, so to speak? The one thing that Samson had from the Lord, and that we can have too, is not human strength or superhuman strength, but absolute determination. Determination, when it is of love, is quite powerful. Reading now from Divine Love and Wisdom, number 410, subsection 6. Every person and every spirit and angel is regarded by the Lord in accordance with his love or goodness, and no one in accordance with his intellect or truth, apart from his love or goodness. For a person's life is his love, and his life is what it is according as he has elevated his affections by truths, that is, according as he has perfected his affections in accordance with wisdom. For love's affections are elevated and perfected by truths, thus by wisdom. And love then acts in conjunction with wisdom, as though prompted by it, but doing so of itself through wisdom, as through a form its own, which takes nothing whatever of its quality from the intellect, but everything from some determination of love called affection. What we can get from this number is that, first of all, we are not judged on account of our faith or understanding of truth, but we are judged according to our love, which acts together with truth. But it also proves that love is the source of determination. You have felt it before, that when you put your heart and mind to something, to some good and useful goal, then there's almost nothing or no one that can stop you. You have a Samson-like approach in that you go out and conquer. Determination is very internal. Likewise, the Lord's will is very internal, yet it causes us to take action down to this lowest level where we live and breathe, and we do things in this world from it. Our actions may even be questioned by others, just as Samson's actions were sometimes questionable. But the end is good. The end is also in the reading today. After Samson defeated the lion, the faith alone, love of self lion, the Lord left honey in the carcass of the lion. This is a good illustration of the result of the Lord's coming, the result of his will, the result of determination. The result is that love and charity, the sweet honey, will remain in the place of where the love of self used to be. And you know you have sweet honey when you feel delight in acting according to the truth. So, what is your lion? And better yet, where is your lion? And pray to the Lord that he give you the strength and determination to go up against it and leave you with sweet honey in the end. Amen.
Thank you for listening. To learn more, visit newchurch.org. And to connect with other people, visit us at groups.newchurch.org.